Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, I am coming to you live from the alternate version of reality where Mason Rudolph is a franchise quarterback going to the playoffs. It is just unbelievable what has transpired over the last several days and now several weeks. And I just can't believe the version of reality we are living in. I just did not see this coming. And speaking of not seeing things coming, my radio partner, who so delightfully ran off screen as soon as we were about to start, but has since returned, joins me on Monday as per usual, Mr. Gage Ryan. How you doing, bud?
Oh, just sensational. How's it going, everybody?
So everybody knows, you know how we set the timer when I do it with Gage or when I do it with Steel Flyers. It's like a 5 minute timer, so that's to like get people in the stream. And so we're talking first though. Like we meet up and we all just kind of shoot the shit for 10 minutes and just kind of talk or whatever. And we did that. And then we had the full 5 minutes, and I was watching him. Gage was there the whole 5 minutes. And 5 seconds before the timer ends, he gets up and runs off screen. And I'm like, well, shit, I had a whole thing here. But I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad we're here to talk about the Steelers going into the goddamn playoffs. This is just amazing.
Okay. Okay, two things. First of all, I think I made it back in the appropriate amount of time. Wasn't leaving you hang. I didn't leave you hanging high and
It just
dry.
caught me off guard, that's all. Oh no, and now he froze. Oh my gosh. We're off to a raucous start here on Five Star Matchup. Um Amazing how this has devolved so quickly here. Hopefully I'm still streaming on YouTube. I think I am. YouTube is not telling me anything is wrong, so I think it's just Gage. Discord has been giving us a lot of trouble lately. But ladies and gentlemen, we'll improvise until he comes back. It's all good. Um, yeah, I am losing my mind early in this show, and it's not anyone's fault. It's okay. Let me see if I could rejoin. Maybe I'm the problem. Ba 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 ba. Sorry if you lose me, folks. I think it was Gage that has disappeared, but that's okay. After the epic goings on this weekend in the league, as I'm sure you saw, yesterday the Tennessee Titans went ahead and did us a tremendous favor, beating the Trevor Lawrence led Jacksonville Jaguars. And I for one pretty hyped about that. What does everybody think about about the Titans doing us a solid? I felt that was, the best. I felt that was the best possibility of ways for the Steelers to get into the playoffs this weekend. I did not feel good about the Miami situation. I think Miami is just in the midst of an epic collapse. Now Gage has returned again. The whole 20 minutes we were talking before the show, everybody was fine, and we're just like the Steelers, though. We got twists and turns, and now we're back and better than ever, right?
Yeah, I was talking to you. I heard you completely fine. Apparently, you couldn't hear me. So
I don't know. You completely locked up on this side on Discord, and it's all good. I mean, it doesn't matter. I'm not, blaming you. Discord's been kind of funky lately for me, actually, just
yeah.
in personal, like other stuff. Have you encountered that?
Yes, I have actually. I know exactly what you're talking about. Sometimes, like when I was messaging like Frayne or whoever else, that like you get no messages, and then all of a sudden there's like five new
Yeah, it's
messages,
been
like the
funky.
connections.
Yeah, it's been funky, and I know some people commented on Steel Flyers during our show on Monday too, or on Thursday or whatever that was. So, but whatever. Yeah, we're all good. We're here. We're flowing. I was just saying. So yeah, I mean, obviously, like we got the help we needed this weekend. I was on record saying that I thought that Tennessee was going to do us a solid, and I did not feel confident that Miami was going to do us a solid. Yeah, just what's your general reaction to what transpired this weekend?
I think that ended the best way it possibly could have. Mason Rudolph showed that he still deserved to be quarterback one. We got the win against Baltimore. And like I didn't think that for one, I spent like all of yesterday or the day before, whatever it was, thinking that the Bills had to lose in order for us to play them. It turns out the Bills had to win for us to play them. And so I think this ended the best way it possibly could have. And I'll go on record as a bit of a hot take today and say that I think that if we were to beat any playoff teams, they would either A, be Miami, or B, Buffalo. I think it ended the best way it could for us. I was dreading the idea of having to play Kansas City as
I
a
know, me too.
goddamn wild card again.
I know, me
Because
too.
you got to play against the greatest quarterback in the history of football, and in the opening round at Arrowhead, with I don't know. At least give us another playoff game. Maybe we can get a win and build some momentum. Then maybe we can talk. But I don't know about that. I think that we have a good shot at beating Buffalo. You still have to call Buffalo the favorite. They have Josh Allen. They have
Oh, I
Sean
mean, they're the
McDermott.
biggest favorite of the week. They're a 10-point favorite.
Sure, but I also think this is one of those games that just kind of screams. I don't know if it's trap game, but it screams upset a bit, doesn't it?
No, it doesn't. No, I
Well,
think no.
I guess
I
we
mean,
think differently then.
I mean, here's the thing. All right, I'm gonna come off probably conservative this week, and I'm gonna say that like I think that the conversation has changed now with the Steelers progressing to the playoffs. They saved they saved face on this season. It is
But how far do they go?
this is as far as they go. I'm not
Yeah,
going to
okay.
convince myself that they're going to go into. I convinced myself that a hobbled 45-year-old Ben Roethlisberger was going to go into Kansas City and have a chance. And you know what? For a quarter and a half, the defense stood proud and gave them a shot. They didn't score. We had the scoop and score from TJ. And that was the last real moment I've had as a football fan to this point, like where I was like, whoa, this is a thing that matters. And like, this is like, they're really going to do this, And if I convinced myself that was going to happen and it still ended up with the Steelers giving up 40 plus points and getting absolutely hammered, then I'm not willing to convince myself that Mason Rudolph, no matter how much I love this story, is going to go into Buffalo and do that to Josh Allen. It's just, I don't think it's going to happen. Would it
How
be
many
cool?
points?
Yeah, but
How many points do you think they're going to score? Because our playoff defense has been pretty fucking horrible in years past. But how many points realistically do you think they're going to put up?
I, I
That's my
mean,
first question.
well, the big question that's going to be on everybody's mind all week, and this is what's going to convince Steelers fans that they have a shot, is the weather. And people are going to say, oh, well, it's going to be, the 500-degree wind, 500-mile-an-hour winds and 5 degrees and snowing. And that's all probably going to be true. It's just when you look at the actual arm ability and you look at what Josh Allen does with the fucking football, the guy, it doesn't matter. He's gonna make some plays. I have to be realistic. I would have no credibility at all if I said, yes, there's good reason for me to believe Mason Rudolph is gonna do that as consistently in a playoff game as Josh Allen. I can't see it.
No, I never said that.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that this is one of those games that, like, there's always one game at least throughout the course of the postseason, at least
Yeah.
one, usually more, where this is opening round, and you got the first seed, whatever the hell, versus the go to hell team, and go to hell team just ends up winning. And it's a case where like we usually do pretty damn well against the Buffalo Bills. Last year they fucking smeared us, but outside of that, like Josh Allen kind of struggles against our defense, doesn't he? Like he's just I don't know. I think the Bills are beatable. I don't really think the Chiefs, at least to the same degree, nearly are beatable. But the Bills, man, or the Dolphins, like we could absolutely win those games. I don't think we will. Let me make that very clear. My prediction is that we're going to lose, and that'll be the end of our season. But we got a shot. I do. I think.
No, yeah. So I don't think. I mean, what I'm saying is that I'm just being realistic in saying that I don't think that it's gonna happen. Like I just don't think it's gonna happen. Like it's just I think that it could though. Like it's not impossible. I'm not saying it's not going to happen at all. I'm just saying, if you really had to be honest with yourself, it's not likely to happen. There is a reason that they're 10-point underdogs. But I have to say, like, you can't discount the moment that Mason Rudolph is having. And
Mhm.
I think the ultimate thing for me is going to be one question, which is, do the Steelers understand why their team has taken off in the last 3 weeks? I understand why the team has taken off in the last 3 weeks. I'm not sure whether or not they do. And my observation there is they've been playing like a team that has nothing to lose, because once Pickett went down, they were a team that had nothing to lose. Well, I should say once Trubisky sold the season by losing 3 games in a row.
Yeah.
Um, they've been playing like they have nothing to lose, and I think that this game you're going to see very quickly, are they coming out, playing very tight, and like they're going to try to squeak out, some kind of, they can't play like that. They have to lean into Mason Rudolph's strengths and throw the football down the field, back the safeties up, and open things up underneath for Najee and Warren, because if they're going to have success in this game, it's going to be because they ran all over them. Put it this way, I see no
Yeah.
scenario the Steelers win this game and they don't have 150 plus rushing yards. That's their only path to success, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't think any Steeler fan is going into this game looking for Mason Rudolph to get into a shootout with Josh Allen. I mean, Mason has the arm strength to keep up with him, but does he have the ability? I'm not sure about that. But I mean, Mace has a great arm, and I think that completing 3 or 4 at most, it doesn't even really take 3 or 4. If you notice, like it usually takes 1 or 2 big time throws for us to win a game. Like the games that we lose are usually because we complete like fucking nothing over the top or something like that. Those 1 or 2 um, one-on-ones to the outside to George or Deontay, or that shot down the middle to Pickens or something. Those are the kind of plays that open up the run game and whatnot. But running the ball is going to be literally everything to us in this match. If we dominate the time of possession like we did against Seattle or something, I think our chances of winning are pretty good, actually. Bills run defense. I don't remember what it is offhand. I wish someone would give me the stats. Maybe if someone in the chat, if they know what it is. But if I remember correctly, the run defense isn't super great. Their whole team just kind of seems like it's going through a bit of a slump this year. Nobody really. They're having the same kind of problem that the Eagles are having. Where they're having 2020 Pittsburgh Steelers syndrome. So I don't know. They're on the team that's on the decline. We're on the team that's on the uprise. It feels a little bit, sort of, kind of similar, reminiscent to the 2020 wildcard game against the Browns. You got one team that's going down, one team that's coming up. And if
Yeah,
there's a time for something to change, it would be now.
yeah. I hear that. I don't think that that's fair to categorize the Bills like that, though, because the Bills have won, I think, 5 in a row. The Eagles are absolutely fucking collapsing. No argument there. The Bills are just having a down year. I think they are similar to the Eagles in that they both lost a lot of veteran defensive leadership, and it's showing. I said earlier in the season that I just
Hard.
think
Nope.
I just think very highly of Matt Milano and what he does for that Bills defense. And I think that that's really kind of, and they also lost Tremaine Edmonds. I don't know if it was this year or last year. So that, the middle of that defense, that backbone, is something that has, it's showed effects on their defense this year. And I do think that they're weaker on that side of the ball than they have been in the past. And yeah, I
Do they
mean,
have Ed Oliver?
they might still. I mean, their D line I think is pretty good, but they're sound, they're well coached. I mean, McDermott is very similar to Mike Tomlin. You know that you're gonna get a fight. They're never gonna come out and lay an egg. I mean, that's just not in their DNA. I have much respect for Buffalo,
Mhm.
um,
Do
but
you think they should get rid of McDermott?
no, I
That's
think
that's a big thing that a lot of people are saying is that they've like hit their peak with McDermott. They should find someone else.
Yeah, I think the problem for me lies more with the quarterback than the head coach. I think that Josh Allen is just he's Brett Favre, and this is an era of say what you want, but this is the era of like the Aaron Rodgers, like you know, the
Mahomes.
Shanahan, the hyper efficient thing. I mean, we have guys
Yeah.
out here, putting up 110 ratings for a full season. I mean, this year it's kind of slowed down a little bit. Actually, I think that we've kind of swung a little bit more towards the running game right now, but still,
Yeah.
that you can't be turning the ball over 25 times a year. It's hard for your team because eventually you're going to get a couple games in a row where you're going to have to play Lamar Jackson, you're going to have to play Patrick Mahomes, etc. And one of them is eventually going to score points on you, and you're not going to be able to keep up when you lose possessions.
And they're a team that's literally just Josh Allen the team. Like it's been a complaint that they've had. That's another reason why people haven't liked
He's
Sean
really
McDermott
good.
or people in Buffalo have been kind of sick of the McDermott experience as of late is because they don't have much of a run game. Until a couple weeks ago, they had James Cook, I think, go off for
Yeah,
like
he's been doing
150
good.
yards
Yeah.
or something. So good for him. I'm not saying that they don't have talent at the running back position. What I'm saying is that they don't utilize it very much. It very much so becomes the Josh Allen show, especially if they go down by multiple scores. They kind of do something similar almost to like what the Ravens do with Lamar, only they're not as good at it, where they just kind of jump on their hyper talented quarterback's back. And I don't think that's the way to success. I mean, Rodgers had a similar problem in Green Bay under McCarthy because they were just jumping on his back. I love using the example where like you would have Mike McCarthy calling Aaron Rodgers to do like quarterback bootleg keepers or something like that. And then on the other side, you had the Patriots running like who is it, Ramondre Stevenson, like running ISO behind a fullback for 5.5 yards a carry. Like just there's a difference between having a balanced team and just kind of jumping on your quarterback's back, and I would argue the Steelers are the more balanced team. Again,
Yeah.
doesn't mean they'll win, but I'd
Yeah.
argue they're a way more
Yeah,
balanced
yeah,
team.
yeah. So yeah, that's hey, I'm not sure, I guess this is sports radio, so this is we're supposed to argue with one another. So my
Sure,
point
let's do it.
is that like you that's what you say when you don't have the horse you can ride. That's the thing. Like, like no, you don't need all pro wide receivers when you have I mean, and not even to say it, they have fucking Stephon Diggs. I mean, he's like really, really, really good, and they got a good
True.
young tight end. I mean, their offense is stacked. The Steelers are balanced, but they're all based on potential. We haven't seen, it's been so limited partially by the quarterback play, partially by the offensive coordinator, partially by the head coach, whatever you want to blame. It's been so limited, the offense, in now the last 5 years, really, that like we haven't ever seen performances like we have where everybody's like Deontay Johnson's really good, George Pickens is really good, Pat Fryermuth is really good, Najee Harris is really good, and that's true, they all are. But yet we've seen Gabe Davis put up 150. What did he even do in that game? Remember on the Bills, he had that game against
Yeah,
Patrick Mahomes. He got like 170 yards and 3 touchdowns or something
for
like
that
that.
playoff game. Yeah,
Yeah, so like we've seen those guys do that for the Bills in these big spots. Both of them perform at the same time. The Steelers' skill players, the offense has been so limited that like the amount of times we've seen like Pickens get a $120 and Najee get 110 in the same game, it hasn't happened because it's
mm,
one or the other. And so
that's
like,
true.
the Steelers, I think for me this game, if they're gonna have a chance, assuming it's not completely impossible to throw the ball. Although one might say it was close to completely impossible to throw the ball in that fishbowl of Baltimore, and Mason Rudolph completed what percentage of his passes?
90,
Exactly, 18 of 20. Very impressive
18
stuff.
of 20.
Very impressive stuff. I remember Duck flapping his wings around in that fishbowl 5 years ago, and he was not good. He did
Mhm.
not complete. God, could you imagine what? I know this is going to get the Kenny Pickett people really annoyed at me, but I couldn't stop thinking about how brutal that game would have been if Kenny Pickett was playing. That ball would have been flopping all over that place. That guy can't. He can't. That's the book on him since college, that he can't play in the rain. That would have been really rough.
Yeah, the rain, the gloves, and his pocket presence have all been issues. I still believe that Kenny Pickett could be a franchise guy. I just think that he needs to be he needs to be kind of moldable in a handling McVay or
Yeah,
McDaniels
but
or whatever have you.
you feel less confident in that than you did in August, right?
Uh, yeah, Yeah,
I mean, you
probably. And I
can't.
mean,
You have
especially
to,
because
right? I mean,
yeah,
the reality is he's been benched. I mean,
yeah.
that's the reality. No matter how you frame it, he's been benched. We're going into the playoffs. He's perfectly healthy, and he's not
Mhm.
playing.
Yeah, I mean, if you would have told me that, like, I remember, what is it? I think it was before this season where like there was this big article that all the Steeler fans were talking about how Mason Rudolph said he was looking for the chance to pass Kenny Pickett on the depth chart, and I even posted it and I said, "Prove it." Like, it
Yeah.
never struck me as this super crazy unattainable feat. I mean, we know that Mason has the talent. I mean, I'm so happy for the guy because you know that he's going, if he doesn't stay with us, which I kind of doubt unless we decide to go on all in on him, and I don't think Mike Tomlin will do that. I think even if we beat Buffalo in the fucking playoffs, I think that they're going to let Rudolph go and go back to Pickett. That's my prediction. But
I can't see
I'm
that.
I can, and I think it's very possible, man. And I'm not saying that's the right move. I'm saying I think that's very possible. That's what ends up happening.
That would be tough. That would be
Yes,
really
it would
tough.
be.
I
Yes,
because
it would be.
but he's gonna, if he wins a playoff game, he's gonna be, somebody's gonna pay him,
Yeah.
like a Minnesota or somebody
Yeah.
is gonna be. I mean, I was shocked the first time that no one just bit on the arm talent alone. I mean, he's a capable backup. Like I never got the idea that he, like, I still was like, he's one of the 64 best quarterbacks in the league. Like, I always was
100%.
confident in that. He's not a third string quarterback. There's guys out there, that are second string quarterbacks that couldn't hold his jockstrap just from a physical, ability level. It's just a fact. But if he wins a
I want
playoff game, somebody's gonna offer him some money, man. I really think. I mean, they might already.
Man, I could totally picture Minnesota. I think Minnesota was a great example, actually. Hey, could you totally not picture him being like, they go from Kirk Cousins to Mason Rudolph? Like, that sounds like something they would do.
Are you gonna
And
tell me
I
he
don't
can't
want it to
lob
happen.
bombs to freaking Justin Jefferson? Who could? Who couldn't?
Is Adam Thielen still? No, he's on
No, they got
Carolina now.
Jordan Addison now.
Jordan Addison.
He's gonna go.
Yeah, yeah.
He's gonna go take Kenny Pickett's best friend from college and dominate the NFL while Kenny Pickett throws for 5 touchdowns next year. Oh my god.
Don't
Oh my
talk.
god. He's
Don't
gonna
talk
go.
like that.
I mean, oh my god, that's just unbelievable to even think about.
And
Yeah,
someone to also mention in that equation is TJ Hawkinson, who was a guy I never really
yeah.
thought got his proper respect.
No, he's talented.
I'm a tight end guy. I love tight ends, and I think that's why I enjoyed watching Ben play so much because he always knew where Heath was on the field.
For
They're they're
sure.
they're 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 just so goddamn important. And so TJ Hawkinson just strikes me as a guy who could be like the engine of the pass game, pretty much anywhere he goes. And so you throw Mason Rudolph, Jordan in a same locker room with Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, and who's the third guy?
Justin Jefferson.
And Justin Jefferson. Jeez, I just couldn't. The name was escaping me.
Yeah, that's a pretty good. That's a pretty
Yeah.
good. I mean, I'm just thinking like, those teams out there that they're either going to be losing an aging veteran or deciding, Atlanta, right? What if you're Atlanta, you got a new head coach coming in, and maybe you say, hey, I got this really talented skill players, this Mason Rudolph. I mean, shit, man, if Matt Flynn got that deal from Seattle that he got 10 years
Mm.
ago from playing one really good game, if Mason, I don't even know if he has to do anything more, but if he just is respectable in this game and the Steelers have a chance, someone's gonna buy that story, I think. And if I'm the Steelers, I think you have to do what you can to bring him back. They were willing to pay Trubisky 10 million as a backup. He's terrible. He's just terrible. There's no way to look at it. And I think you would really regret it if you let Rudolph go after this run. I know this is the backup quarterback arc, and he very well might turn back into a pumpkin. But dude, I don't know. That's a scratch off that I want to take a quarter to, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I mean, it also wouldn't make sense just from, I guess, I don't know if it's the optics necessarily, but I mean, you're gonna wait until he becomes a good quarterback to let him go. Like, it just doesn't make any sense, right? Like, what are you going to keep Mitch Trubisky and Kenny Pickett and just have those two fight it out again? And then what?
No,
Knowing
yeah.
Mike Tomlin, he'll probably have Mitch Trubisky be the starter again for the first couple
There's
weeks so
no
he can
chance.
tank.
There's no chance. Although I guess last year I said there's no chance Mason Rudolph was going to be on the team this year, but I'm going to say there's no chance Trubisky is back on the team this year. I think he completely lost the confidence of everyone in that locker room. I don't think there's any chance he's ever taken snaps again.
Well, he's not taking snaps again, like unless everybody else is injured. But no, I guarantee he still has, I think, one more year left on his.
They're cutting
They
him.
extended him.
I
They
know.
extended
I
that
know.
motherfucker in this
I
offseason.
know. I know. That's what I had to say, like, to somebody who commented today on, I don't know if it was a short or whatever, where somebody was like, this is great, by the way. Like, you commented on a couple of things like this. When somebody tries to say we're like on like a Mason Rudolph bandwagon,
Yes,
I,
yes.
I like, I'm like, all right, you can say like, I really do. I know it sounds like I'm just being funny, but like, I love when people talk shit to me on the internet. I love it because what I've realized after doing this for a few years, like when I was like first, second year, third year, even, I was still kind of like, oh, I want everybody to like me. And like, I want to like, and now 5 years later, you realize that nobody on the internet fucking matters. They don't matter at all. They can say whatever they want. They can do whatever they want. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if we have different opinions about something on Twitter. Come at me. That's fine. It's good engagement for me. I genuinely don't care. But when somebody tries to say, as the 5-star sirens kick in, when somebody starts to say that we're on a Mason Rudolph bandwagon, I'm like, bro, that was like literally the first thing I ever talked about on this channel. So miss me with that.
I got so I was equal parts agitated and laughing because it was just so ridiculous. Because, like, to sum it up for anybody that didn't see it, like on the Mason Rudolph video that we posted not too long ago, this guy said, like, he specifically called us out and said you guys weren't supporting Mason Rudolph in 2019. None of you had his back, and I was
No,
like, well,
I did.
damn, like, I guess he missed that our first like big video was actually the first video that I ever noticed from 5-star matchup, the one that actually got me and Steve talking on Twitter initially, was the is Mason Rudolph good versus the Colts video. So at the time, our biggest video was a Mason Rudolph video. At the time, our most successful live stream was a Mason Rudolph live stream. And our entire channel was built on the back of the Mason Rudolph Duck Hodges year. And I said, we are literally the only channel you can't make that claim
I,
about. It was crazy.
oh man, comments are great. Here's a
They
good one.
are.
I
It was
just checked
so
the
funny.
I just checked the YouTube studio just to see if I could find that comment, but here's the most recent comment on today's show, which by the way is just about to cross 10,000 views already today. So awesome. Thanks for that response. I worked very hard to give you guys an extra special episode. I hope everybody appreciated that little Titans and Jags interlude. Little bonus
I did.
content. The top comment, Mark Sumner. Maybe he should shut his mouth about stuff about the players. Bet he can't do better. No, I can't. I tell jokes on the internet. I'm a comedian. Like, I love this idea of like people, and it's like, here's the other thing. You're also talking shit about me on the internet and you don't know me. So like, what is the moral high ground of people on the internet, you know?
Okay, and I can't I need to, just for a second, is the whole like, well, I bet you couldn't do any better, like when you make fun of a musician or something. It's like
Yeah.
Roger Ebert does not need to be a film producer to explain to you why a movie's bad, in the same way that you, the viewer watching, do not need to be a 5-star chef to say a meal is terrible. So it missed me with that shit. I don't know.
I know. I mean, it's people just kind of crack me up. Like, I love when people come at me negative stuff in the comments. It makes me laugh. Especially like the YouTube ones. The YouTube Shorts has been a fun one this year because we've been doing a shitload of views on those. And those kind of like people, they don't have the same this is like insider boring baseball, but they don't have the same lifespan as like a regular video. So people see shorts for like months. Like they'll click into your short that you posted like 6 or 8 months ago. With the regular videos, for the most part, not really the case. And you'll see people being like, yeah, I guess you were wrong because of blah, 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 blah. And I'll be like, dude, I posted this 13 months ago. Like, I don't know what you want from me. Like, and the idea of like, when people came at me after like the roast video and stuff, where they were like,
You guys better apologize.
yeah, yeah. And I'm like, guys, I am not like an empirical force. Like nothing I say matters, right? Like I'm just
Yeah.
here giving you content. My whole thing, my whole identity is to be like, I am your friend reacting to the Steelers. Like this is how I am seeing these things. This is how I'm feeling these things after those two games. That was how I was feeling. And now I am screaming on the internet about how Mason Rudolph is going to start a playoff game and I'm hyped about it. Like I just people like I don't know. It's always this gotcha mindset. It's gotcha, gotcha, gotcha. It's like, dude, I'm owning up to it. I'm not hiding nothing. Like
Nuance does not exist on the internet. You either have to appreciate everything the Steelers do, or you have
yeah.
to talk nonstop shit. There's no, like, and honestly, I was shocked. I was shocked that people were so like. There were some people, not a lot, mind you. Like the reception on the video is usually pretty good, but like the 10% of people or whatever who are offended by your stand-up comedy in particular, and I was just not understanding where the. Like I remember when I was writing out the script for the commercial that I did,
Great
and I
job
was
on
thinking,
that.
oh, thank you. I appreciate it. But like, I remember when I saw everybody else's clips in comparison to mine, and I was like, "Oh, I'm so much meaner than everybody else." Like,
Yeah.
you were making fun of like Ben, or you were making fun of Ben and like our playoff
Yeah.
record and stuff like that, and like I was making fun of Ben's hush money. So I
Mm.
was kind of shocked that you were the one that got all the flack for the stand-up comedy
Because
because you
okay,
were very nice.
okay, okay. Let me explain that video. All right, I'm gonna explain this. This is a diatribe no one gives a shit about, but I'm gonna explain it because it's my channel, and I'm gonna explain it. And you should watch that video if you haven't. Like I know people don't. I put a lot of effort into making something unique for you guys. Like
Watch
it's
it.
it's it's like I've said this I think on stream before. I think everybody knows from like my editing style and stuff. Like I really like Tim and Eric, like Andy Kaufman, like, weird comedy, Mr. Show, that kind of stuff. And that video, like the stand up, me doing the stand up, the whole point of that and like the Seinfeld music and stuff was that it's like anti humor. Like I'm saying, it's making me feel like I'm like a cliche comedian because every week I have to make a joke about Deontay Johnson fucking dropping a ball. And I'm sick of it. And that was the whole point of that was like, yes, I wanted the jokes to be funny, but the whole point was that like I feel like a hamster on the wheel because again, it's another season and the Steelers have collapsed and I'm left here doing the same amount of work for 3,000 views instead of 20,000 views. It sucks. So it's just, it's that wasn't supposed to be, I don't know. I tried to have fun with it. I hope people that watched it enjoyed it though.
For anybody out there, I'm gonna mansplain real quick or I'll editor splain to people in the back that may not get it. Is like whenever there's some kind of grayscale and a slow zoom in kind of effect, it's probably like anti-humor or sarcasm or something to that degree. It's happened to me before too, where I've said something in that vein that's obviously like sarcastic or hyperbolic or whatever, and then there's that grayscale and the zoom in, and people are like, "Well, that's not true," and I'm like, "No shit!" Like,
I mean, I
crazy.
think here's the other thing too. I mean, to bend this back towards football is that I still believe all that stuff I said a couple weeks back. Like
Yeah.
I still think that this season was an epic collapse, and I still do think that the fact that they needed help on the last day of the season was a letdown from where they had been at 6-3. I really like, I thought at 6-3 that this was a team moving in the right direction. I was willing to kind of overlook the offensive struggles, but I was still kind of, you know, unsure about it. And the Cleveland game, especially where they had Pickett and they lost to Dorian Thompson Robinson, that to me was just, really embarrassing. And I thought the worst performance of Pickett's career so far, including the 3 interception games last year. I just thought, terrible and just inept. And that's when I really started to lose confidence in him. Um, but I still believe a lot of that stuff that I said about Tomlin, and it's still his fault that Matt Canada was the offensive coordinator. It's still his fault that, they played Mitchell Trubisky for so long, and it was so abundantly clear that he was just not competent. I mean, he's taken how many games has he played now for the Steelers? I'd guess
Too many.
8 maybe, right? Somewhere around there. 7, 8, 9, somewhere, because he's come in for second halves quite a few times because Pickett gets hurt all the time. Um, and he's been, I think I can think of 1.5 games when he was good. He was good when he came in the Bucks game against Tom Brady. He was spectacular. I'll give him all the credit in the world for that. He was spectacular in that. Now he
He was
was
he was he was good. He was not
he was
spectacular.
good and he was really good in that game, man. He won that game. Him and Claypool won that game. I'll give him credit.
I'm sorry, man. He was Devin Bush having the best play of his entire career away from fucking that game up. Like he's fucked every other Steeler game up.
Okay,
I'm
all
sorry. I
right.
cannot give him all that much credit. He was about to screw that whole game up if Devin Bush didn't make one good play. I can't. I'm sorry.
I don't remember. Did he turn it over?
No, it wasn't that he turned it over, but he had like he does this thing where like all you need is one more
Oh,
point
I
or one
know,
more
I know.
drive or one more
Yeah.
field goal drive, and then that's when the car sputters. Like
Yeah.
watching Mitch Trubisky play quarterback is a lot like in a movie where the guy's trying to get away from the serial killer and the car won't start. That's
Yes.
how that Bengals game in week 1 of last year felt to me. It was driving me crazy.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
but
anyway, my
and
point
we were
is,
having that again.
yeah, my point is, and then he played good in that Carolina game last year, but the Carolina was
Yeah,
obviously a terrible team with nothing to play for, and they ran it for like 200 yards, if I
yeah,
remember.
yeah.
But I'll give him credit. I'll say game and a half, he played good. The rest of the time he's played, though, he has been absolutely terrible, in a way that I don't even feel sorry for saying. Like he has been horrible, and I mean, where did the loyalty for him come from? I never understood it.
Here's my question for you. Well, I'm not even saying this is just here's a hot take for you. If you took Mitch Trubisky's time in Pittsburgh, like from the beginning of last year or whatever, all the way till now, and replaced it with off the bench, current modern day Charlie Batch, we win more games than we have.
Oh, they win 10 or 11 games last year and they win 11 or 12 this year.
Yeah.
If
It
they went to Rudolph after Pickett got hurt, they definitely win 11 games, they might win 12 this year.
yes. And like Rudolph doesn't need to be amazing. That's the thing everybody's saying. Well, Rudolph can't like outduel Josh Allen. He can't outduel Patrick Mahomes. And it's like, no shit, he doesn't need to be. But you see in Steeler games, we're having one or
Yeah.
two. That's it. Just one or two big pass plays down the field is really the difference in us winning these games and losing these games, which to Tomlin's credit is something that he's been saying for years. When he talks about the lack of splash and all that bullshit, that drives me crazy. Like stop have your defense actually make stops for a change. But like
Yeah.
when he's talking about splash plays and the big like pass plays and whatnot, one or two of those can win us the game because our defense at least keeps people out of the end zone. So we're one or two big plays away from this Buffalo game being pretty interesting, in my opinion.
Listen, man, they went out, okay, this season if you just look at the losses, right? Uh they lost to Jacksonville. San Francisco, they just got their ass kicked. Houston, they got their ass kicked. Those I'm not going to argue those. But if you look at that Jaguars game where Trubisky came in and played a half, they barely lost that. Jacksonville scored 20 points. That's a good defensive performance against a team that was playing really good. And that game
Penny
was
for
there.
4 quarters wins.
Yeah, that's a game that was there for them. They could have done it if they had competent quarterback play. Um, what did Trubisky even do in that game? I don't even
Nothing.
remember. I'm gonna
I think he
look.
threw like 2 picks and
Fif- yeah,
yeah,
15
because I
of
didn't.
27, 15 of 27 for 138 yards, one touchdown, two interceptions.
I,
Terrible.
rem- I remember the Let's Watch Pittsburgh I did on that, and it was like I was like freeze framing it and saying like, here's the receiver, here's the 4 people around him, and then here's off to the side where Mitch actually threw the ball. And it's just
I mean, so you look
it was
at that
awful.
game. So that's a game that if Rudolph comes in, maybe you have a chance there. Um,
We
but
win that game with Rudolph or Kenny. We win
sure,
with either one.
sure. Then they barely squeak by the Titans and the Packers. That Browns loss is just gonna stick in my craw all off season. Um, that's the difference between the Steelers going 5-1 in the division or 6-0. They would have been probably the 5 seed because they would have knocked Cleveland down and they would have been a game better than them. That loss was putrid, absolutely putrid. And say what everybody wants about division rivals and the Arizona and the Patriots games. Yeah, those were really bad. But that Cleveland game, okay, your starting quarterback played the whole game and he went 15 of 28 for 106 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions to his credit, but 15 of 28 for 106 yards. Are you kidding? That is like that's not this is like what people say is like, oh well, um Kenny Pickett, he had Matt Canada. I'm sorry, Matt Canada sucked, but Matt Canada was not out here calling that bad of an offense, okay? That the quarterback literally in 2023 completed 15 passes for 106 yards. That's absurd. That's just not professional caliber play. And Pickett was as big of a reason of any. I don't care that he didn't turn the ball over. You had your quarterback and they had Dorian Thompson Robinson and you couldn't score 14 points. That's not acceptable.
No, I agree. I agree. The only thing I'll give them is that I was saying at the beginning of this year when people were hyping up the Cleveland defense, I was saying, well, let's see if they keep it up. How many times do we see defenses have go on a hot streak for 6 weeks and then collapse? And
Sure.
to Cleveland's credit, they probably have the number one defense this year.
They have
They
a
don't
great
have the number one player, but they have the number one defense.
No, listen, they have a great defense. I'm not taking anything away from the Browns. But they didn't fucking do anything on offense in that game. Okay, it's 2023. Like that, you can't win a game that way. You have nothing. Ben Roethlisberger would have won that game by 10 points. Yes, that at that like in that time and place, that Ben Roethlisberger could have rolled out of bed 6 days before that game, practiced for a week, and won that game by 10 points. And I have no question about saying that. Like that's just they were not getting professional caliber quarterback play at a Pickett in that game. Dorian Thompson Robinson, 24 of 43 for 165 yards. How do you hold a guy to 165 yards on 24 completions and you can't outscore him? Come on. Pathetic. Pathetic.
Yeah, we've definitely had some bad performances along the way.
And then the Cardinals, whatever. Kyler Murray was back. I can live with the Cardinals game. You lost the quarterback in the game, but that Patriots game, man, come on. Come on, the Patriots, come on. These are just things that I mean, if you had anything other than Mitchell Trubisky at quarterback, you win those games easily.
I didn't believe for a second that we would beat the Patriots. I thought we'd beat the Cardinals maybe in a hard-fought overtime win or some shit. But I didn't think for a single solitary second that we would beat the Patriots because we just don't, and Mike Tomlin just kind of gets owned by Belichick.
But Bailey Zappi,
I don't care.
Come
It doesn't
on.
matter. They beat us almost every time. I think Matt Castle was the only Patriots quarterback we've ever been able to stop before. Because we couldn't stop Brady. We couldn't stop Mac Jones in 2 attempts. We couldn't stop Bailey Zappi. They just know what to do against us. It's fucking pathetic.
It is. It is
Yeah.
amazing.
We have they have what 4 wins this year, and we're one of them.
Yeah, well, Arizona too. Arizona's I think got 4 wins all year, and they beat the Cowboys, Steelers, and Eagles. 3 teams that made the playoffs.
Unreal.
The NFL is
Unreal.
crazy. I was thinking about this. The AFC North, right? So this was the first time since 1935, I think, that a division all went above 500 because the Bengals went 9-8, which I think you got to give the Bengals some credit, right? I think pretty impressive considering how their season started and what happened with Burrow. I think pretty impressive for Zach Taylor, right? You got to give him some props.
Yeah. I mean, like he definitely plays in a what did we call the system? It was like Sean McVay light.
Sure.
What they do. So I mean that system is always going to work to a certain degree. It's kind of reminiscent of like when Tom Brady went down in 08 and they brought in Matt Castle, and it's like
Sure.
he went he went 11-5, but he also went 11-5 thrown to Wes Welker and Randy Moss. So
Yeah,
you're
that's
bound to
fair.
do okay.
That's fair, but I'm just saying they had a losing record when Burrow got hurt. And they have a bad defense. They could have that team could have just moved on to next year. I give them credit. That's all I'm saying. I think it was impressive. I thought they were gonna, once Burrow got hurt, I was like, that's gonna be like a 6-11. They'll get a nice draft pick, and so I'll give them credit. And you know,
No,
um,
I'm not talking junk about them at all. No,
yeah,
it isn't Jake Browning. I think he
yeah,
until he played us at least, he had like one of the highest QBRs in the entire NFL. So
he's
I
been
don't take
great.
anything away from them.
Yeah, he's been great except for his 2 games against the Steelers. The Steelers did are like his kryptonite. They figured him out. But anyway, that's where I'm going with this. So, first division since 1935, where all 4 teams are above 500, and the Pittsburgh Steelers are 5-1 against the division, and they're 5-6 against everybody else. They have a negative point differential, and they're 10-7, and they're in the playoffs. Make it make sense.
We're either the worst good team of all time or the best bad team of all time.
I
Much
cannot.
in the same. Is that not a Mike Tomlin team right there?
I cannot believe. I know. I remember saying this. I mean, the 2021 was the next most incredulous I was that they made the playoffs.
Yeah.
Because I remember at the time being like, I can't believe that they're in the playoffs, and this is like now I think surpassed that. Where like I had no, I did not think at 7-7 once they lost those 3 games, I was like, this is done. This season is over. It's time to move on. I gotta start watching basketball. It's like, it's toast. And I can't explain it, but they're there and they're going to the playoffs, and I just I don't know, man. I guess I give them a lot of credit. I was here talking shit about Mike Tomlin all of December, and I'm still disappointed in the way that month played out, but by hook or crook, god damn it, he made it to the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think that this season, I call any season where we don't win a playoff game a failure. And that's just kind of where I sit on this whole thing. We lose in the divisional round, we lose in the conference championship. Listen, only one team can win the Super Bowl. I understand that. But, like, I feel like we've gotten into, I think you actually said it pretty much word for word, where it's like, oh, well, Mike Tomlin, he got this team to the playoffs. That's pretty impressive. And it's like, yeah, but we said that in 2018, I think. Or no, we missed the playoffs in 2018 because we fucking collapsed again. Shocker. But like we said the same thing when we were almost in playoff contention in 2019, and then we said the same thing in 2020, and then we said the same thing in 2021. It's like, can we just do something in the playoffs? Can we at least like get a
Yeah.
win under our belt?
Well, no, I think that now, what's happened here is that I think that what we've seen now is Tomlin got back to buoyancy with the finish to this season. I think that 3 weeks ago we were all kind of in this place where we were saying like, man, I don't know, we might be time to start thinking about the future for everyone involved. And now I think getting he's got his head above water, right? So this season now is kind of up in the air, right? Because I think if you look at the way the quarterback played, you look at midseason firing of the offensive coordinator, and you kind of say like, okay, well, we made the playoffs, so I guess it's still better than last year, because last year we went 9-8 and didn't make the playoffs. This year we were 10-7. The team showed some ability. It's a young team. It's moving in the right direction, and you start to you can massage it to a point where you're like, okay, I'm happy with this. This year is successful. Um, I agree with you that by my standards, like growing up watching Ben Roethlisberger win Super Bowls, yeah, like I miss winning playoff games and I miss the feeling of that. I think where they're at right now, I can't say that's my expectation. So I have to say, like, getting to the playoffs was still pretty much, even in the best case scenario with Kenny Pickett, that's like pretty much what I thought the best thing they could do this year was. I thought they were going to go 11-6 and maybe have a chance to win the division. I mean, 10-7 winning wild card. It's not dramatically different. But that 7 versus 2 matchup is just really tough. It's a tall order for anybody. And I can't say that, I just hope it's not embarrassing, truly. Like, I just hope it's a game, because the last few playoff games we've played have just been absolutely miserable. And I don't
that
ever remember a second of any of them because they're just terrible.
that's the thing. That's what I was kind of going to get to, is that we haven't had a playoff game where our defense has given up less than 34 points, 36 points since 2016 against the Adam Gase-led Miami Dolphins in the wild card round, where we actually did not play down to competition for a change. So that was great. It was great to see. But like, what is our like? It feels like we are the Pittsburgh Commanders, if you will, and we have been for a while, where we just kind of stumble our way into winning seasons and get absolutely raffle stomped in the wild card round. So if we can at least make it a game, man, if we can make it to a game and not get blown out in the wild card round, that'll be nice. But
Well, yeah.
I won't call the season a success until there's a playoff win. I think that that's where the standard should be at least.
Okay. Now let me ask you this. You got your do you have your crystal ball nearby? Can you conjure up some
Yes.
can you conjure up some spirits of the future? All right, we're going to take a little trip just like I did in the video. We're going to take a trip to the future. Okay? I'm going to magically teleport each and every one of you to August of 2024. And we're going to look, okay, the Steelers in the offseason, they gave Mason Rudolph a 2-year, $23 million deal with the promise to compete with Kenny Pickett for the starting position. All right. He beats him in the starting competition, becomes the starter week 1, is now the Steelers starting quarterback for the foreseeable future, and goes on to be an average to slightly above average starting quarterback. Then does this season become a success in retrospect if you found the answer to your quarterback problem?
I mean, on one hand, I could be hard headed and just say no, playoff win or bust. That's my thing, because that's kind of been my motto every year. But no, in hindsight, it would be a helpful year for sure. I just the hamster wheel is what
Yeah,
bothers me and has bothered me for so long. It's like, can we just get some traction here, right? Like
I
a
agree.
playoff win is not too much to ask for. I think what did wait, Jesus Christ, Pete Carroll. I can't believe I screwed his name up. Pete Carroll has a playoff win more recently than we do. Doug Peterson won a playoff game last year. Adam Gase, I think, has won a playoff game somehow. Timothy Richard Tebow beat us in a playoff game. These are not difficult things to achieve now. I mean, sure, they're difficult, sure, but they're not unattainable, even with, like, let's say, subpar quarterback play. You know, I know that it was a long time ago, but I mean, Jesus Christ, the Ravens got a ring with Trent Dilfer, one of the worst starting quarterbacks of all time. It is what it is, but when you go into the playoffs and the Baker Mayfield led Cleveland Browns, who are not a bad team, but they can put up, what was it, 45 fucking points?
Oh,
Why does
listen,
Blake
yeah,
Bortles
yeah.
get the style in our defense? Like, can we just settle the defense down a goddamn bit?
No, listen, I'm not I'm not excusing any of those other playoff losses because we've recaptured those ad nauseum. I'm not excusing any of those. I think that you know the Browns game, they just got smacked in the face by a team that was primed, for their moment. And the Steelers were just collapsing behind Roethlisberger's failing play. That's just how it was. And the Chiefs game, I can't even blame them for that. The one in 2021, I mean, they just were outmatched. I mean, they
No,
just,
no, but
yeah,
it's
that one,
it's
I don't put that one, like, when people talk about, like, the Tomlin stuff. That one, they had no chance in that game. And I had no illusions about that. I got hyped about Juju coming back and playing and all that shit, but I knew there was no chance they were ever going to win that game in a million years. I don't feel that way about this game. I think they have a chance to win this game. I do. I think
yeah,
Buffalo is sloppy. They're not the world beaters that Kansas City was a couple years ago. End of the day, I trust Patrick Mahomes more than I trust Josh Allen. So for
way
me, like,
more.
yeah, I'll bet that Josh Allen might throw an interception or something. Like, that would be cool. And the
Very
Steelers will
likely.
have a chance, but I still don't think it's likely. But it's not, that 21 game. I don't blame Tomlin for that. They had no chance.
I know, but it's also just the case of like, didn't a couple years ago before that, when Patrick Mahomes was in his first year as a starter, he still styled on our defense.
Oh
Or
yeah,
even
yeah.
after that game, whenever they played us again, they still styled on our defense. Or before that playoff game, a couple weeks in week like 14 or 15 of that very same year, where they styled on our defense again. Like, it just feels like we do the same thing, and then the Chiefs go, "Oh, okay, well, we're just going to keep doing the same thing then." Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I just feel like we've been a hamster wheel for a little while. So I'm excited for this game against Buffalo, but there is like I do feel there's like at least a 25% chance that our defense gets absolutely shafted again.
Yeah, I mean, I think the defense is gonna keep them in it a little bit. I think I'm really
Hope
compelled.
so.
I'm compelled by the the TJ thing. Just sucks. You know, it's just such a bummer that that had to happen. Because you know, at least you if you got your dog out there, you got a chance. But you know, part of me almost says like maybe it forces them to have to be a little more thoughtful and a little more creative. Because I think if
Uh,
Tomlin, what?
no, I laughed.
Oh yeah. No, I'm not saying I'm not going to make the case it's going to help them. Trust me. No, I'm not going to make that case. But I will say that
No, no, but
I
they're
will
not
say
going to
that
change things.
sometimes Tomlin has a tendency with you know the guys that he deems dudes, you know, like
Mm.
Le'Veon, you know, Antonio, Ben, Troy, Minka, TJ, he sometimes will have a tendency to just say like I'm betting on my guy and we're just going to like build the game plan around them anyway. And you know, as we've seen it a number of times, like there have been a lot of big games against good quarterbacks where TJ hasn't really impacted the game that much. I'm just being honest, don't come for me, but there have been
True.
times because really advanced quarterbacks can get rid of the ball really fast and they know how to make your pass rush ineffective. It's, you know, let's be real. It's not the same thing pass rushing Jake Browning or Tyler Huntley as it is pass rushing Patrick Mahomes. It's just not. It's just not this. It's a different thing. Even Tom Brady,
Yeah.
statue. Say what you want about Tom Brady, he's a statue, but it's hard to get him. It's hard to sack him because he gets rid of it so quick.
No, that was I was going to make a joke about that. You were saying like, well, good teams know how to kind of neutralize pass rush and neutralize blitzes. I was like, yeah, Tom Brady figured that out like 20 years ago, and just nobody ever countered it. Like, that's not true. That's not true. We actually figured out that man coverage and actually mixing things up and not just calling cover three the whole game actually works out pretty well against Brady. But Brett Coleman made a really good video about that, where it was like how they did the same kind of coverage rotation, where they would shift from cover two pre snap to cover three post snap, or some maybe it was opposite. I'm not sure. But then once you do it 3 or 4 times and Brady gets a chance to see it, then all of a sudden it's a long completion to Julian Edelman right down the middle. It's like, yeah, you can't do the same thing a bunch of times against a really good mind. It's crazy how that works. I don't know, man. I don't think Josh Allen is nearly as intelligent of a player as someone like Brady or Mahomes, though. I think that he's a guy. Your comparison to Brett Favre, I thought was really, really apt. Though I remember when people tried to compare Mahomes to Brett Favre, and I'm like, stop comparing other quarterbacks to Mahomes. He's not like
No,
anybody else.
no,
But
he's not.
I think
Yeah,
that what did I messaged you? Do you remember this message a couple weeks ago where I said, is Josh Allen just Philip Rivers?
yeah, he's better than that.
He is, but
Josh
how much
Allen,
better?
yeah. I mean, because Philip Rivers never had insane physical attributes, like ever, even in his prime. He always had that lanky throwing motion. Josh
Yeah.
Allen, man. I mean, like I'll like just physically watching him throw the ball. I've never seen anybody else in my time watching football, honestly, and this includes Patrick Mahomes. Some of the throws he rips down the seam where it'll be like 55 yards down the field and it looks like it's never more than 8 feet above the ground. I mean, the thing just like is on a
Laser.
rope. It's absolutely unbelievable. His arm talent. He had one in the game last night. I don't know if you saw this where he was falling away like from the pass rush. It looked like a fadeaway jumper and he overthrew a guy 50 yards down the field. I was like, could you imagine? Could you imagine accidentally throwing a ball 30 feet further than you wanted it to, 150 feet down the field? Like, that's insane.
Throwing off your back foot, getting hit, and then walking up to your receiver after and be like, "My bad, I overshot it." Like
No,
that's a
his yeah.
flex. That's a
No, his
flex.
I'll
Come on.
never say, but you're right. He makes a lot of mistakes. That's why, every single time they're going to match up in the playoffs for the rest of their career, I'm going to bet Mahomes every single time because
Yes.
Mahomes is just the smarter player.
Let's see if this pisses off anybody in the chat. I would take Brock Purdy over Josh Allen and not think twice
No,
about it.
that's stupid. That's just asinine.
Is it?
That's
Is it?
asinine. No, yeah,
I think
you still can't take more than 2 or 3 guys at most over him
here's my question for you.
just because of the talent.
Who,
It's just insane.
here, just yes or like, well, not yes or no, but like, just give me names. Who's the more efficient quarterback, Josh Allen or Brock Purdy?
Brock Purdy's more efficient, yeah, but he's not throwing the
Who's the
ball
more
75 yards down the field.
He doesn't need to.
Yeah, well,
But,
because
like,
they got all stars at every. They're gonna. Here's my. You want my take on the San Francisco 49ers? I would be
sure,
willing
but I
to bet. I'd be willing to bet they're not even gonna re-sign Brock Purdy. How about that? They're just gonna move on.
I don't know
No,
about that. I
they
don't know
need.
about that.
All right.
I think that they're gonna keep. I think they'll stick with Brock Purdy. Like, Brock Purdy's been I think that the issue of like, is Brock Purdy good or is it just Kyle Shanahan, is just gonna be a problem for the rest of Brock's career.
Oh, I think Brock Purdy is good. I'm just saying. I think that the way that team is constructed, there's no way they could foreseeably have a big time quarterback contract. They just couldn't do it. They would decimate their entire team. That's why they're so good.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, they're efficient, and I mean, like, I think Brock Purdy, like, okay, here's an example, right? Is that Kyle Shanahan, fun fact, up until the Brock Purdy thing, because like we'll talk about Brock Purdy in a second, but up until the Brock Purdy thing, Kyle Shanahan had a losing career record without Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, is Jimmy Garoppolo a world beater? No, but his quick release time, his accuracy, and all those kind of things made his offense like way more efficient. And so it's clear that Brock Purdy's doing something behind center that's definitely adding another element to this passing game and to this run game even, because now you're scared of, like, will Brock Purdy just take the underneath stuff all day? Yes. But can he also carve you up down the field if you leave your guys in one-on-one coverage? Yes. Jimmy Garoppolo didn't really have that deep ball ability. Brock Purdy can just kind of play anywhere. I think that he's a better quarterback than people give credit. I think that he's a significant reason why Shanahan's doing well.
I'm not taking anything away from Purdy and what he's achieved because I think it's very impressive and I'll give him a lot of credit. And he's a hell of a lot better than the first quarterback taken in his draft.
Which one?
You guys might have heard of him. He plays for the Pittsburgh Steelers. What was his name? Kenny Pickett. Yeah, that's the one. He's way better than Kenny Pickett, so I'm not trying to talk any junk. Ryan in the chat says Lamar, Burrow, Mahomes are all better than Allen. I could see that with Burrow and Mahomes, and I mean, I guess I could get there with Lamar. I could be convinced. I've been impressed with what Lamar did this year.
I think I'd take Allen over Lamar.
Yeah, I mean, but I could. You have a case either way, but he's no lower than 4th or 5th at the worst. Because then you start getting into guys that have some question marks. Because where do you go next after that group? Jalen Hurts. I mean,
nah. Jalen Hurts has like regressed badly this year.
It's not been good. Philadelphia has really collapsed. It sounds like kind of mutiny there, actually. It sounds like stuff is not going well in Philly right now. I wonder how that's going to all play out.
Mike Tomlin beat the losing the locker room allegations. Nick Sirianni did not.
He did. I'll give Mike that. He absolutely did. Let me ask you, while we're on the subject of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and we're gonna do a lot of content this week, so excuse us if we're not talking too much about the playoff matchup yet.
We got at least one more stream. We got
a whole week, so we're just kind of free flowing here on a Monday stream. Make sure you watch the full 5-star matchup if you haven't yet, and if you really like the show, make sure you go over to patreon.com/5SMU and donate $4 or $7 a month to support the show. Do I sound like my recorded version when I say that like that?
A little bit.
Yeah, no, I mean, make sure you go over there. Make sure you watch the show. What was I going to say? Oh, quarterbacks. Okay, so this is something I want to talk about, and I want people to respond to this in the chat. Okay, I want you to give me a percentage chance of these 3 things. So it's a total. These things will add up to a total of 100%, right? So these are the things. These are the questions. percent chance that Kenny Pickett is the starter week 1 for the Pittsburgh Steelers, percent chance that Mason Rudolph is the starter week 1 for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and percent chance that someone else is the starter week 1 for the Pittsburgh Steelers. How would you put those how would you divide up your 100%?
What do I think and what do I think should happen are very different things. But if you're asking what I would predict Mike Tomlin's gonna do,
Just like where you put the, if you're setting the betting odds right now, where you
odds.
yeah, what are you, where are you saying is the most likely thing to happen?
I would say that there's about. I think that this is what Mike Tomlin's gonna do. I think that Mike is gonna. There's about a 50% chance that Kenny will start, and probably like 25-25 on Mason or somebody else.
Okay.
And I don't think that's how it should be. I think if we lose this game 27-24 and Mason looks pretty decent, he should absolutely be quarterback 1 this year, or at least give him a fair shot to compete for it next year, and give him I liked your was a 2-year $23 million. I'd pay 2 years $23 million for Mason Rudolph. Absolutely, I would. And I mean, if you don't, someone else surely would, especially after this little 3-0 run he's been on. And I mean, if he looks good against the Buffalo defense and whatnot, I mean, that's great. At least give him a chance to compete, man. Don't just let him go. Like, you wait? I said this earlier, but like, what? You're gonna wait until he plays well and then you're gonna let him go? Like, you might as well let him compete for the starting position. You know, Mitch Trubisky isn't gonna fucking win it, and so is this gonna be another loyalty thing for Mike Tomlin at the expense of wins? I don't know.
Yeah, it's fascinating because I think obviously if I asked this question 4 weeks ago, no one knew what Mason was going to do, so it wouldn't have been a fair thing. But I still think, like, I've seen it just the way people reacted to Pickett earlier in the season when I would criticize him or what have you.
Yeah.
I know this reaction would be way different because I'm looking at the people that are responding and they're saying 45, 45, 10. Josh Dobbs, the fake Josh Dobbs, or maybe the real Josh Dobbs, says 595. So he seems to think that Mason Rudolph is going to be the starter. Hard to explain, who I highly respect, common commenter. 55 Mason, 30 Kenny, 15 someone else. Somebody else, Mr. Tummy, says 70% someone else, which I find very surprising. 20% Mason, 10% Pickett. Christopher says 20% Pickett, 70% Mason, 10% somebody else, 50-50, 50, 35, 15, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's not one person putting Pickett as the highest percent chance of being the quarterback next year. I disagree with everyone there. I would go at this point in time right now, and this is even different than I said last week, but I think right now I would go 50 Pickett, 30 Rudolph, and 20 somebody else. I think there's a non-zero chance it's someone else entirely, but I still think it's going to be Kenny Pickett week 1 if I really had to place bets on it. I think they're going to give him, and I think rightfully so. I don't know. I mean, does he deserve to lose his job? Like, how much do you blame Canada in that whole situation? I don't know. It's tough. It's tough. No, you got to let it be a real competition. Yeah.
Like that's the thing, is that competition was not a real quarterback competition. People that were watching that were like watching training camp that first year that Kenny was there were saying that Kenny was the best. Well, actually, like a lot of them were saying Mason was the best quarterback.
Yeah, a lot were.
But like the people that weren't saying Mason were saying Kenny. Not a single soul was saying that Mitch was outplaying either of those two guys. So naturally, let's have Mitch Trubisky start like fucking 50% of the last 2 seasons and not even like look at Rudolph until you have a metaphorical gun to your head. Like there's something about like efficiency with me. This is me talking. Like when you're doing things one thing at a time, it like kind of irks me. And so when you see the situation very clear in front of you and the person doesn't take it like bothers me. It hits a special nerve with me. And so when you have a guy who very clearly cannot play quarterback at the NFL level, and who Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph both are clearly better than, and I'm forced to watch that on my TV screen every week. It's very frustrating. At a certain point, I just started like not really. I would listen into the games and I'd catch up. But if Mason or if Mitch Trubisky was playing quarterback, what's the point? It was going to be a loss.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I'm just yeah, I'm surprised by the people's reactions. You know, as you know, we have the most illustrious fan base in the Steelers YouTube community, so I respect our
100%.
fans' opinions, and I, you know, I'm just surprised to hear the confidence, the amount and the way in which it's changed. Because, you know, as you and I were talking about before we got on the air or when we started, I don't remember, um, like the responses to me about Rudolph back in 19 were full of such vitriol, like like that I was such an asshole for suggesting that, considering the situation, by the way, he was thrown to like Johnny Holton and you know, whoever else was playing wide receiver. Remember, everybody was hurt that season. James
James
Washington,
Washington.
you know. And you know, I was sitting here saying, you know, I think considering the situation, like he's not doing too bad, and like, and people were going off. And no matter what you want to say about Matt Canada, this year, Kenny Pickett, in a season that each and every one of us thought he was primed for a sophomore leap, and don't lie, because you thought it, we all thought it, came out and was very disappointing. Like, very disappointing. And you can put some of that on Matt Canada. And yes, I don't think this was going to be a high potency offense no matter what with Matt Canada. There's
Efficiency was the name of the game.
there's enough stuff that we saw on tape, just missed throws on third downs, missed people in the end zone. We were talking about that Jaguars game. He missed Deontay Johnson way late for an easy touchdown in that game. I think if I remember correctly, he missed Calvin Austin in the Cardinals game, I think, before he got hurt on that drive.
On the play, he got hurt. On the play, he got hurt.
Yeah, and everybody's like, oh, well, you know, that wasn't the first read. And I'm like, dude, you know, sometimes when you're just a point guard or a quarterback, you just got to look. You just got to look with your eyes and see that there's a play to be made, and you got to make the play. And all year, we just saw Pickett continuously not do that. I think, you know, I will say that my confidence is very shook. I no longer think that I would say it's likely that Kenny Pickett will be a plus starter in this league. I am bothered by this year. I think in totality, it was a tremendous failure. And I'm not saying it's even all on him. It's partially on the Steelers for putting him with Canada. You know, it is what it is. But I do think that this situation is just it's devolved fast. And I don't think it's I don't know. I just have this overwhelming feeling that the Kenny Pickett and Pittsburgh Steelers partnership is just not going to be a fruitful one. I don't think it anymore. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong, because I still think that that's the best path to them being a successful franchise. I wouldn't bet on it.
You know, you're probably right. I still maintain that the things that Kenny Pickett, the big attributes that I said that worked for Kenny Pickett, are still there. Just his issues still need to be ironed out. And Pittsburgh isn't really a coaching staff known for fucking ironing out players' problems, so to speak. Cough, Antonio Brown, cough.
We massage the problems into successful players. We just massage them.
And then run them out of town whenever their egos get too big.
Yeah, so once they get that second deal, and then it's like, all right, peace out.
Yeah, so I mean, like, I don't know, man. I'm going to be honest with you. I actually forgot the question by this point. What were we talking about?
It's okay. We were talking about Pickett and just like the likelihood that you think he's going to be a plus starter and that whole deal.
I mean, like, I think right now, if you literally just didn't improve on Kenny or spend any more time with him, he'd be an adequate backup. Like, I wouldn't mind
no doubt
that.
about that.
But like, is he going to be a franchise quarterback? He still could be, but it's the question of like like Kenny Pickett, his strengths are still there, which is his efficiency and his ability to not turn the ball over. Which, say what people will about him getting injured and whatnot, and his other problems that are evident, you can't take those two things away from him, and those are important qualities in a quarterback. But like when you look at any drive in particular from Kenny Pickett, if you can give him 4 yards at a time, he'll slowly, like he'll nibble at that burger until there's, until you look up at the box and he's got 300 yards at the end of the game. He can do that. But anytime I see Mason Rudolph go under center, it feels like, I don't know. It feels like at any point, like there could just be a
Yes.
75-yard touchdown.
Exactly. I understand that comparison perfectly, but what I would say is watching Kenny Pickett play is like if you were to take the most beautiful burger, right? Like what do you like on a burger, right? Like just hypothetically, what's your burger order? Like you go to Five Guys or something, what's your burger order?
I don't really eat meat that much, but I would
Okay.
say, like if you asked me, I would just do a plain cheeseburger.
Okay, all right. Well, that's boring. So
I
I'm
know,
gonna
right?
change it.
Use yours.
I love burgers. So if I go to Five Guys or something like that, my order is extra cheese, grilled onions, jalapenos, and a little bit of ketchup. All right, maybe a little mayo. Maybe a little bit, but I got to do that myself because they put too much. All right, so that's my burger. If I'm talking about Kenny Pickett playing, right? It's like as though I opened the foil package and it was this beautiful, soft, warm bun covered with grilled onions, cheese, ketchup, jalapenos, and absolutely no burger patties. And when I watch Mason Rudolph play, I don't have a bun, but I'm not really worried about the bun because I have two delicious, juicy burger patties waiting for me, and I wanted the protein. I'm hungry. The bun with ketchup does nothing for me. Yes, Kenny Pickett can move it between the 20s, and yes, he can complete passes, but at the end of the day, he just did not produce points. He just didn't. He was absolutely horrible in the red zone his whole career so far. There's no arguing that. It's a fact. Blame Canada if you want. That's up to you. But I watched him and I commented on every game of his career so far. And almost every single time, he absolutely fucking sucked in the red zone. Even in the games that people talk about him being really good, like that Raiders game. He was not really good in that early this year, he was good in that Raiders game. But the one last year, he was not really good in that game. He had a really good drive at the end, but they were chug-a-lugging along against a terrible Raiders team. The only reason they won that game was because Derek Carr was way worse than he was. So, I think that I just can't see a ceiling with Pickett anymore. It's been too long where, I think we guilt trip ourselves here a little bit into saying like, okay, well, you have to be patient and we had Ben for 20 years and, that doesn't mean that you're going to just draft the next guy. Dude, I've watched CJ Stroud, right? I saw CJ Stroud do more things in the handful of times I watched Texans games this year than I've seen Kenny Pickett do watching every snap of every game he's played 3 times over 2 seasons. Like, and I've seen Stroud do that just physically, just seen him do stuff that made me go, God damn, I'd love to have that. Even the Justin Herberts of the world, all these kind of people, you look at them and you're like, wow, that's pretty awesome. And Kenny Pickett, you look at and you say, yeah, well, if he could fix this and if he could fix that and if he could do this and if he could do that, and then you start to say like, okay, it's been 30 games, when is it going to happen? If he hasn't gotten a handle on pocket presence by the time he's 26 years old, is he ever going to get a handle on it?
30 games, but like 15 actual starts because he keeps getting injured.
I'm just trying to be honest. Like, I'm not really trying to shit on the guy. I'm just being honest with myself. It's been too long of me saying like, is he gonna be good? I just have to say I don't think he's good.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he's a guy who you would give more time to, and you could probably see him blossom into that kind of that 20 touchdown to 5 interception kind of guy.
I know, but again, what's that ceiling? Like, I'm gonna wait 5 years for that ceiling?
Yeah.
Like,
that's the thing. Like Mason Rudolph, like people are talking about the it factor. Mason Rudolph, at least with his arm talent, has more of an it factor than Kenny.
That's
Pickett
the thing
does.
with Pickett is we were sold coming out of the draft, or a lot of people were, that like, yes, that his ceiling was low and that his ceiling was like a 20-7 kind of guy, but we thought we were going to be getting that right away, and we haven't even gotten 20 touchdowns combined in 2 seasons.
It's true.
I mean, it's been so far below the line where it's not, and it's not like he's Lamar Jackson or something where if you looked at those passing stats and you'd say, well, yeah, but he did have 890 yards rushing each season. Like there's just not enough. There's not enough meat
I
on the
agree.
plate.
Yeah, you were talking about how Mason Rudolph is kind of the burger without the bun. I think Kenny Pickett is like a regular burger bun with like a White Castle burger underneath.
Oh,
There's just
yeah.
not enough here, you
Yeah,
know?
where's the beef? Yes.
Where's all of it? I got a burger or I got a bun as big as my dinner plate, but I don't have it's Monty Python and the Holy Grail. So much bread and not enough butter.
It is, and it's just and I don't like saying that. Like that's the other thing. Like I don't mind shit talking Mitchell Trubisky because Mitchell Trubisky makes a shitload of money and Mitchell Trubisky sucks. So I don't mind saying that because he's making $10 million and he's absolutely terrible at his job. I make a fraction of that and I'm really good at my job. I don't risk concussion every day. So credit to him. Get your money. Like, clothe your kids. I hope Mitch Trubisky has an awesome, dope ass house with a sick pool table. Like, I don't wish him anything negative, but he sucks. Like I'm just being real. He's a terrible NFL quarterback. That's just the reality. But he's not our property. We didn't draft him. I don't care about Mitchell Trubisky. I have not, rooted for him in dire moments like I did Ben Roethlisberger, and like I have it with Kenny Pickett because we drafted Kenny Pickett. Like, I own 2 Kenny Pickett jerseys already after a year. Like I want him to be successful. I liked the draft pick. None of this is me. I don't even regret the draft pick. I think they did the right thing. So I'm not having fun saying this. I think it's being realistic to say it's probably just not very likely he's going to be very good.
I'm content. I think that this wild card game is a big measuring stick for Mace. I mean, like, do people expect him to win? No, and maybe that's an advantage for him. He doesn't really have a lot of pressure on him.
He's
I
got
think that
nothing to lose.
nothing to lose and everything in the world to gain. I think that he is currently praying to the altar of Nick Foles. I really do. I
Dude, if
think
he
that
wins
he's
this
saying,
game, he might make 50 plus million.
"Dear Mr. Big Dick Nick," I can just see him writing like the letter to him like it's Santa Claus. It's just like, give me strength, give me. I don't know, man. I think Mason, this is his time to shine. If he's ever going to get another opportunity this big, it's going to be now. Because I mean, can the Arizona Cardinals give him a deal, and could he accept it? Maybe, but are they going to make the playoffs? Fuck no. Even Jonathan, what is it? Jonathan Gannon's their head coach. I mean, he's okay, but I mean, I don't really know how far they're going to go with him. Like, could they? I'd say that if any team was going to be like playoff caliber that would offer him a deal, it's like you said earlier. I think it'd probably be Minnesota. But does he want to go to Minnesota? Does he want to stick around with the fan base after he just fought with Pittsburgh and the fan base and the coaches after he just won them over? It's a really interesting situation. And I think a lot of it boils down to this playoff game. If he wins, you have to keep him. There's no other option here.
He's good, but if he win, but okay, but here's the double-edged sword of that. If he wins, he's going to price himself into a position where you're going to have to pay him starter money and essentially say he's going to be the starter.
Maybe. That's entirely. I mean, like, listen, he's a guy
If he
who,
wins, because if
you
he
offered
wins
him,
this on the open market, if he wins this, someone is going to offer him starter caliber money, not high end starter caliber money, but if he wins this and like looks good against Josh Allen, someone's going to offer him real money. And if the Steelers want to keep him at that point,
they're
they're
going to
going
make a decision.
because they're not. Why would he want to be here? I've said this over and over again. The Steelers have fucking screwed him over and over again, and they were the reason basically that his career was about to end because they shuttled him off, onto third string while he's got to sit there and watch, Mitchell Trubisky make 10 times as much money as him to be absolutely terrible. Why would he want to be here? I think I'd probably take the first opportunity to get out of town if somebody offered me, even a multi-year deal. Peace out. I'm done. Like, I don't, that's the other thing that makes this, it is a fascinating situation. It is.
And it's also a case where, like, Mason's a pretty smart guy, I'd say. Like, he understands, I guess, the optics and understand kind of where he sits on things right now.
Yeah.
And I think that he's a guy who also understands familiarity of system and familiarity of locker room is also massively important. You know, how many times, like over and over again with various quarterbacks, they have a nice little stretch of play, they get a they get a big contract, and then they go and they have some kind of Brock Osweiler contract, and then they go and just tank themselves. Unpopular opinion, I thought Brock Osweiler actually was okay in Denver, and I thought if they gave him more time and had him learning and demanding a little more, I thought he would have been a halfway decent starter. I liked Brock Osweiler. Maybe
No.
potentially. I'm just saying it wasn't a guarantee, but I thought he was okay. You know, but like, how often do we see that? And then they take this big money, they go, and then they just fizzle out. I think that Mason is a guy who maybe could take a bit less money and get a chance to compete for the starting spot in Pittsburgh. Like, do we give him an extension if he plays well and like gets the starting job and whatnot? That's possible, but like I don't know. I'm interested to see what happens, because do we just give him up without any kind of fight? I'd like to think we don't, but I've been wrong before.
I don't know, man, because it really just depends on what his market ends up being. I mean, we saw that no one was interested in him before. So it really just depends on like if the league is going to look at this stretch, and again, everything depends on this weekend. You know, it just depends if the league is going to look at this stretch and say, you know, that's Josh Dobbs syndrome, and he came in, you know, people didn't expect it. They were, you know, game planning for something else, and he caught him off guard, and anybody could do that for 3 or 4 games. Then you might be able to afford him. But, you know, you get some team out here like like you said, the Vikings just keeps popping into my brain. But you know, Atlanta, I think, like any of these teams that might
Chicago.
yeah, Chicago, maybe if they decide to move on from Justin Fields, you know, maybe they trade him to the Steelers. Maybe it's a sign and trade. Maybe we sign and trade Mason Rudolph for Justin Fields.
I would take Mason Rudolph over Justin Fields and not think twice about it. Good
I'm
God.
more interested in Justin Fields after this season than I was before this season, but I'm still not like trading high draft picks for him.
You
Um,
And by
Christopher,
the way,
go
oh, I'm
ahead.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
The guy in the chat, I think, who's that? Ryan, who says, do we go after Russell Wilson, Kirk Cousins? No, please, for the love of God, do not go after either of those guys.
I don't like Russell Wilson, but I will say Russell Wilson did play really good this year, and he was not the reason
Efficient.
at all that the Broncos were bad. He was actually pretty good this year, and you know the fact that they even got close to 500 was really impressive with that start. But the Steelers aren't. The Steelers, there's zero chance they're going to sign anybody like that. If when I introduced the opportunity of another person, that was just like if they couldn't keep Rudolph and they fell in love with somebody in the draft and had an opportunity. You know, I'm not convinced that they're sold on Kenny Pickett. I don't care what these bogus reports say. Of anytime a report's like, oh, well, they still feel Kenny Pickett's the franchise guy. Anytime you see anything like that, it's absolute bullshit that's planted to just make the player not feel as bad. I don't buy that at all. I don't think everything in my heart tells me after watching Mike Tomlin for 20 years that if he still believed in Kenny Pickett would have been starting last week and he would be starting this playoff game. The fact that he's not tells me he doesn't believe in him. So that doesn't, I'm not necessarily convinced he's going to change his mind after an offseason of not playing ball.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't really think of it that way. I just think that Mike is such a creature of habit. He's so like, nope, we're gonna stay the course, and then we're gonna stay the course, and then we're gonna keep staying the course. Like this brick wall over here, we're gonna keep walking right into it until it breaks. And to his credit, sometimes the brick wall breaks, and sometimes it doesn't.
But doesn't it surprise you that he did? I don't know. I was really surprised that he went back to Rudolph. I thought for sure Rudolph was going to get the one game and that was going to be it. But he I don't know, man. I think once the injury is healed, you got to admit he benched Kenny Pickett in kinder words.
It is the first time, I think. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm actually curious if I'm wrong on this. But to my knowledge, as someone that's seen every single game of the Mike Tomlin era, sometimes multiple times when I got to do the fucking Let's Watch Pittsburgh episodes for it. But is this the first time he's ever played the hot hand? Like, I think it is, right? Like, anytime that he went to D'Angelo Williams full time, as soon as Le'Veon was back, he was back to using D'Angelo as a backup, and then sometimes they would go 50-50 on it. But like really, anytime in the past, even if the guy has been playing shit, like what Gunnar Olszewski, he got injured a couple of times, and they put Calvin Austin in. Calvin Austin looked amazing on punt returns, and then what happened whenever Gunnar Olszewski was healthy again? As soon as they could, they threw him back into the lineup. Like Mike Tomlin never ever plays the hot hand. A lot of times to his team's detriment. Now, playing the hot hand isn't always the best way to go about things. I mean, I think Josh Dobbs is currently QB3 on the Vikings depth chart, so it's not always the right choice, but it's always not always the wrong choice either. And he's a guy who just kind of is committed to his guys, and like I wonder what happened. This is off topic now. I'm kind of ranting now, but like I always wonder, like, why did they get rid of Gunnar Olszewski? Like, yes, I understand because he was a terrible player, but we have kept on to many terrible players throughout the entire season. It was just, I wonder what happened there. That would have been interesting. But we never ever play the hot hand. So for Mason Rudolph to stick as a guy who Mike Tomlin doesn't even seem to like very much, for him to stick as the hot hand, like that's a big sign. Yes, you are correct.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that there's a definite chance that they are not internally sold on Kenny Pickett.
Definitely possible.
I definitely think that they still think they probably owe him at least another opportunity with a real offensive coordinator, because I also think that that's fair too. But I mean, I don't know. I was just gonna say, somebody in the chat, Christopher, said 3 years, 10 million with incentives, assuming he wins on Sunday. Listen,
He'll never take
that is
deal.
that is such a rosy view, my friend. Like, there is no way if he wins a playoff game, there is no way you're signing him for that. Mitch Trubisky made almost 10 million this year to be a backup. Like, you're not signing. He's not an idiot. Okay,
Like
the guy is gonna get
deal.
some money. Like, he's gonna, and you don't have their agent knows damn well, like, you don't have a serious quarterback contract on the books because you got Pickett. So I mean, I think you do everything in your power to try to sign him to a 2-year deal, and just you go out these next 2 years. If you end up going with Pickett and Rudolph as a backup, you got that. And if you end up going with Pickett and then Pickett and then Rudolph as a backup, or Rudolph with Pickett as a backup, I mean, either way, you could afford that for the rest of Kenny Pickett's rookie deal, and you go from there. But I think you definitely got to make every effort to take him back. I think even if he doesn't win, even if he doesn't win this weekend, I think he'll be cheaper than if he were to win this weekend. And at that point, you absolutely have to. You got to cut Trubisky and keep Rudolph in the building.
In an ideal world, in a rose-colored glasses kind of world, you re-sign Rudolph to. I mean, hell, I'll take the 2-year, $23 million. That's what, a little over $10 million a year. I mean, that's fine. That's what we gave Mitch Trubisky. I would
you would. Yeah, the first it would probably be backloaded. Like, the first year would be like 9, and the second would be 14. They'd restructure it, whatever.
I mean, hell, if he likes the guarantees, then maybe you do some adjusting to the numbers or whatever, and you make it a 3-year deal, and you do what we did with Mitch Trubisky. Only it's actually a good idea to do it with Rudolph. I don't know, man. And then like you get Mitch Trubisky out of there, which should save you a little bit of money. I don't think that maybe there's a penalty for cutting him. I don't know how contracts work. But then, so you have Kenny, you have Rudolph, and then like theoretically you have Rudolph probably as QB1 and Kenny as QB2, at least for the time being. Who do you put as the third guy in that QB room? I would like a guy. God damn it, I wish Charlie Batch was still able to play, because he would just be perfect in this room.
I mean, I'm not losing much sleep thinking about a third string quarterback when I have 2 veterans that I'm, reasonably competent, that are reasonably competent players and experienced by that point. So I'm not.
Are you Tomlining me?
I'm just not, I mean, that's not top of mind for me. But I think it's got the the possibility of being a better quarterback room. I mean, I think you just get a young arm. You just get a 5th round draft pick, 4th round draft pick, and throw them in there and see what they can do. But I think it's for me, it's a necessity. It's a necessity to bring Rudolph back. You have to figure out how to do that. And I think you have to have a legitimate competition, because he's earned it, and Pickett, whatever the opposite is of earning, he's earned the negative of having to win a competition again because he just was not good
Yeah.
enough this year. It is just a fact.
Mason Rudolph has played well enough to earn the competition, and Kenny Pickett, while playing poorly, has at least done enough to earn the ability to compete for the starting job again.
Yes, exactly. Josh
Yeah,
Dobbs says Josh
oh,
Dobbs says get crazy and tag Mason. I don't think he
that'd
could
be
afford the franchise. That would be like 32 million or something.
32. I mean,
I
I
know
remember when
something
we
like
tagged.
that. Franchise
I
tag
remember.
is the average of like the top 5 at your position.
Oh, is that true? Yeah, that might be true. Because I remember when we tagged. Yeah, I guess you'd be right. Because I remember when we tagged Bud, and it was like $10 million. I was like, that's a
Yeah,
great deal. Get
because there's
Bud
only
back
a
for 10
handful of
million.
outside backers making a ton of money, but quarterbacks, I mean, shit,
Yeah.
I imagine the money for it's probably closer to 40 actually.
I would hate to. I would kind of hate to tag Mason. I mean, it'd be good for us, but I feel like then the Kirk Cousins allegations wouldn't
No,
stop
it
coming.
would make no
You know?
sense. You can't do that.
It, w-
You might have
yeah.
to tag him if you sign him to a little deal for like 1 year and then he plays again next year and he balls out. Then yeah, you might actually have to franchise him. But we're getting so far into the Mason verse today. It's unbelievable.
The
I still just
Mason
can't
curse.
even I just like can't even believe like I feel like I'm in purgatory. Like I can't believe that this is real. Like
A
that
Mike Tomlin experience.
that season 5 a 5-star matchup. It is literally 2024 and I am still wearing my Mason Rudolph jersey from 2019 and we're talking about like do the Steelers have to re-sign Mason Rudolph and let him compete with Kenny Pickett and we're going to the playoffs in 5-6 days. We have a playoff game. This is unbelievable.
In a
I just
playoff
can't,
game where we actually have a legitimate chance at winning.
I just
Like
can't
those
believe
games
it.
against the Chiefs don't count.
I just can't believe it. It's the most surprised I ever have been. It doesn't make sense to me. And man, the more I'm sitting here talking today, the more I'm convincing myself they're gonna have a chance in this game. I know. This is the deal. I do this
Oh
every
yeah,
year. I do this every year. It's not gonna happen. They're gonna lose, but it's okay.
probably.
Um,
Well, here. Like let's be optimistic here for a second. Let's cherry pick some positives, can we? Just a little bit.
okay.
Our defense we have one of the best scoring defenses in the entire NFL,
No argument there.
which is ultimately what matters, right? We can't stop the pass, we can't stop the run, but they also can't score touchdowns against us, and that's ultimately what matters. In addition to that, we have a good time of possession game. And what was the other thing I was going to mention? Good time of possession game. Oh yeah, and we also have arguably the best. We have the second best fourth quarter defense in the entire league, only behind the 49ers. I think you mentioned that in the show this
Yep.
week.
True.
So there's some legitimate advantages that our defense actually has, as opposed to the last couple of years where we went into the playoffs thinking, "Oh my God, this defense is fucking terrible." So
Yeah.
we have some positives here. We have pieces here to build with. We also have the best running back duo in the entire NFL. Fight me if you disagree. Uh,
Yeah.
there's things to build here with. Broderick Jones has been good. Our line has been improving, and Mason Rudolph has been the best quarterback we've had since 2018. So we have a chance. The question is, do we pull it off?
No, listen. I mean, hey, they have been very good at scoring defense this year. I can't deny that.
Mhm.
They're 6th in the league. They're giving up 19 points per game. And that does give them a shot. Anytime you can hold somebody to, 20 points or less in the modern NFL, you're giving yourself a chance. So I'll give them, I'll give them credit there. However, and this one goes to, my good friend Hard to Explain. Good defense, good run game, last seed in the playoffs. Wait, where have we seen this before? I understand what you're
Uh,
alluding to. Okay, I got a little picture over
we're
there.
nowhere near that team, though. I gotta admit,
Couple of
nowhere
pictures
near.
over there. You can't see them because they're blurred. That one's Jerome Bettis. It's signed, and that one is Heinz Ward. The Sports Illustrated cover. Both after Super Bowl 40. Yes, I remember Super Bowl 40. Yes, I remember 2005. I also know that was an offense that underperformed, but also had a quarterback and had a passing game and like it's just not the same. Like that team had a midseason slump and they came out of it hot and they went on a run. Like I'm not willing to I'm not willing to get there with this team only because yes, the scoring defense is really good, sixth in the league. The scoring offense, though, on the other hand, is 28th in the league, and they're scoring 17 points per game in the year of our Lord 2024. So I have to just be realistic and say, like, yeah, no, it is what it is.
I
Hey,
will say this.
yeah, go ahead.
The 2005 Steelers, nobody ran the football more frequently. We were the number one most frequent run team, and that keep in mind that includes head coaches like Kubiak and Shanahan at the time, and Bill Cowher was like, "Nope, run it more." So it's crazy. Like that team was just a weird team that just refused to air the ball out, but at the same time, it was always super effective. You know, Bill Cowher's record we talk about all the time was like 107, 1-1 when he had the lead at half.
Right.
This team, in a lot of ways, especially compared to that team, it feels like we're kind of held together with duct tape and prayers a little bit. But that's fine because I think duct tape and prayers might be able to get us over the finish line against Buffalo.
Well, my point is just there that like the pedigree element. You know, the 2004 Steelers were 15-1. Like we knew what Roethlisberger was. This team is just not that. Like it's just not. It's not that. There's no one on this team that's been in an AFC Championship game for the Steelers. Like it's, we don't have that. But yeah, I will say like the one thing like we've kind of talked about throughout this whenever we talk about the actual game is the rush offense of the Steelers. And looking at this year, besides
what's our ranking?
I don't have that. Let me see. Passing, rushing, we are 9th in the league in no, that's rush attempts, 13th in the league in rush yards. But I did see earlier today, since week 9 I think it is, we're second in the league in rushing, and that's what I was gonna.
A little more accurate.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. With the exception of the 2-game run against the Patriots and the Colts, where we unfortunately got blown out by the Patriots and the Colts. Kill me. I want to die. Hate it.
Vomited all over ourselves.
Absolutely terrible. That Patriots game, I'm gonna be chewing on until the rest of the time. That was so embarrassing. Besides that. This is going back to the Titans game. So yeah, week 9. The Steelers have gone for, this is all rushing yards, 166, 205, 172, 153, 130, then the 2-game stretch where they were under 100, then 113, 202, and 155. So I mean, they are grounding and pounding. I mean, they legitimately are, and that gives you a chance. And if they can control the line of scrimmage on the offensive side of the ball, say Amalu and those guys come out mean and angry, you got a puncher's chance.
Is this a little too off base? You can redirect me if this is too off base. But like, this is why I thought that Matt Canada's offense might succeed. Because for those that don't know, they're still using the same playbook. It's not like you bring in a new playbook for an interim offensive coordinator or anything. Because I was saying the whole time, I was like, split zone runs and play action Yankee concepts and whatnot work. Like every team does them. Why can't we do it correctly? And like you see what happens when a run game is actually coordinated. Worth the fuck, it's done well. I give Mike Sullivan credit. I was actually kind of dreading the idea of him calling plays. He hasn't been good, and I'll say good. I'll say lightly good, but he's definitely been better than I was expecting. I was expecting like maybe a slightly better Randy Finkner, but we got old age Ken Wisenhunt. How about that?
I'm not going that far, but I do think, yeah, I mean, I agree with what you're saying about the run game. I do think that, yeah, obviously it's still the same playbook. I think the problem with Canada was that it just got to yeah, exactly. It got to a point where it was so obvious that he didn't, I mean, especially working with a young quarterback like Pickett, right? So they were in a situation where you have an offensive coordinator who's never coordinated a successful NFL offense. That's just a fact. Canada never had an NFL job before the Steelers. That's just a verifiable fact. And you have a quarterback who's a rookie, and you really don't have a veteran in the room. I mean, the veteran in the room is Mitchell Trubisky, but like, come on, is that really
You're
helping?
screwed.
Yeah, exactly. It's not, he's not Chase Daniel or something. Um, so so you have these two things, and then it's like, okay, and then your head coach is Mike Tomlin, who, as we all know, is mostly just concerned with the defense from a schematic perspective. It's just who he is. So you get to the situation where you're like, okay, well, who in this conversation, like who on the phone, who in the radio, is like, okay, yeah, this is what you do on 2nd and 13 in the NFL. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
everybody said, oh, well, Canada's offense worked with Roethlisberger, blah blah blah, because Ben knew to say like, no, it's 2nd and 14. We're just gonna get 5 yards so that 3rd and 9 is possible.
Nope. Throw it deep twice.
Exactly, and that was the missing thing with Canada. I still think there are bones where if Matt Canada came into a situation where, the Steelers had an established, decent, competent quarterback that they didn't have to build from scratch, that Matt Canada, maybe there's a reality where it works out for him. But I think just the reality was that he was not equipped to build a guy from scratch in the NFL. He wasn't. And that was what really hindered them this year. My fear is that it's going to have a long-lasting impact on Kenny Pickett that he might not recover from, because we're talking about a very, a leader and a confidence guy. That kid we saw go into that Jets game last year that was getting popped and getting back up and laughing and balling out. We did not see that guy once this year. We just didn't from the start. They got hammered in week 1 against the Niners, and from then on out, everything felt hard. And I don't know. I'm not a professional athlete, but I don't know if that always can be worked back. I think sometimes if you get benched for Mason Rudolph and your team's playing a playoff game, live or die without you, and you're having to hold the clipboard for someone else, I just wonder if you ever get that feeling back.
It's possible, but like I think, if I'm not mistaken, we were saying these exact same things on this exact show about Mason Rudolph whenever he was getting hit, and then he got benched for Duck and got smashed in the head with his helmet and knocked unconscious in the same year and publicly slandered by Myles Garrett and just all these fucking horrible things. It was really crazy how much adversity Rudolph went through, and you saw him kind of melt under the pressure, especially in that Cincinnati game. And I don't really hold it against him very much. That's a lot of shit for one quarterback to go through, especially in 1 year. And I think that Rudolph is a guy who showed that he can come out on the other end of that as a better player. He's definitely been better than he's ever been. That doesn't say a lot, but it says something, I think. Like, if you're telling me that right now you would take Aiden O'Connell or Jimmy Garoppolo or something like that over Mason Rudolph right now, this very second, I think you're kind of lying. You know what I mean? So it's a matter of how far does he take us, and a matter of, like, does he stay stable or does he fall apart in the playoff game? Do we win the playoff game? Who knows? And I think that Kenny is a guy who, if you give him a little bit of time to, I guess, iron out those issues, and also like give him some time to ride the bench and watch another quarterback play in the system, I think it'll benefit both people probably.
Very astute, very fair, very reasonable, just like always with you. Of course, you are smartest man on the internet.
Damn.
What? No, I'm serious. I'm being honest. You are the smartest. I didn't mean that to be sarcastic. I mean, you
It
are.
sounded very
You are.
sarcastic.
I know.
That.
But that's my shtick. I know. But I meant it. I meant it seriously. I think that was. I think you're dead on.
Thank you.
My thing with him is just. It's just a feel thing. I can't quantify it. I just feel like something has changed. That press conference a couple weeks ago where he said he felt ready to go. And what's transpired, I just wonder, I just has the makings to me of something that's just going to not end up working out. But we'll see. And I think that, my ultimate observation now after making the playoffs and having this Rudolph run Rudolph. I think that I'm losing my mind. We've been on the air almost 2 hours. This is my last point, and then we'll wrap it up. I do think, though, that this season now, like I said, Mike getting his head above water, right? I think that now what's happened is it is just going to shift an immense amount of pressure onto them for this offseason and next season now, because I mean, I know there's always pressure moving into the future, but now this is going to be year 3 post Roethlisberger. You're making the playoffs. You need to show me why this was a step forward this year. You need to show me why this is going to be a better team in year 3 than it was in year 2. And, and I just think that quarterback situation is going to really dictate a lot of how that all plays, all that fits together. Because the reality is, too, Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph are not the same player. They're good at different things. And that's gonna matter, right? Like that. If you're gonna keep hypothetical world where you got to build around one of them, it impacts like. Are you going to keep George Pickens around? Maybe you're more likely to keep George Pickens around if you have Mason Rudolph chucking him deep balls than if you have Kenny Pickett throwing Jalen Warren 2-yard out patterns. Like, maybe impacts your decision making a little bit, but it pushes that pressure to next year. But most importantly, it pushes the pressure to Sunday in Buffalo, where we will play a most unlikely playoff game. I love it. Gage, let's get out of here. What do you want to leave the folks with? What's your final parting thought for this Monday show?
I think I can wrap my final part and my response to what you were saying in the same thing. So that's great. And the big thing is that it's just a playoff win, man. That's what I've wanted for a couple years now, because it just feels like once we win a playoff game, it's just something to build on. Like, even if people argue like, oh well, you just stumbled ass backwards into a playoff win against a Bills team that just kind of was on a down year, and this doesn't mean anything because you guys still don't have a high ceiling. It's like, yeah, but there's something here to build with, because right now we are just the Washington Commanders with a fresh coat of paint, or a less fresh coat of paint if you want to be technical about it. But I believe in Rudolph. I think that you and I have been singing Rudolph's praises for a while. I think that, I mean, you were talking about how Rudolph and Pickett have very different skill sets, and that's true. I think that, like, maxed out, if you're just looking at these players like in vacuums, their play styles are very different, because Kenny, I've said a million times, is basically a Matt Hasselbeck clone in terms of his play style. And meanwhile, Mason Rudolph has said for a long time that his like quarterback inspiration was Peyton Manning. And if you notice that, like, with his footwork's not nearly as good as Peyton's, don't get me wrong. But I'm saying that his style of footwork is very reminiscent of Peyton Manning. He does the same kind of things in the pocket, outside of his happy feet, but nobody does that with Peyton. But like the same long pocket passer, throw it deep, not running around in the pocket very much. I get where the comparison comes from what he said. That'll be interesting to see how that translates, because you can see that George Pickens is more happy in this offense, even when he's not even getting the ball, because it looks like the offense is actually moving forward. So wrap it up. I really would like to see where things go. I'm excited to see how that Bills game does. And one last thing that I'll mention is that Hard to Explain mentions in the comments that if anybody remembers the "Why is everything so hard" video from a month or two ago, apparently got turned into a drinking game, which is great. Like, yeah, if you watch pretty much any Steeler game, especially from like the beginning to middle parts of the season in particular, you can turn that into a drinking game where you find yourself take a shot every time you ask yourself, why is everything so difficult?
So
That sounds
hard.
kind of perfect. So anyway, if you guys enjoy my ramblings, enjoy the content or whatever, you can also follow me on Twitter at Gage Ryan Video, Instagram at Gage Ryan Video, and I'll have another video coming up here on 5-Star Matchup here in another day or two.
Do it. And make sure you go check out his Mason Rudolph piece that came out on Saturday. Huge success for us, like almost 12,000 views already, I think. Pretty awesome. I'm really I liked that Saturday release before a game, so maybe you should drop something provocative this weekend. Let's talk about it. Are you already working on something for this week, or no?
Not technically. I have some
Yeah.
ideas, but nothing started yet.
You should think about something like that, because
Yeah.
that was a really effective. That's off the air talk, but just an observation that did real good. Make sure you check out the piece. Make sure you check out the full episode. If you haven't already, I'm immensely proud of it. It is my gift to you. Week 18, 5 seasons now of doing this show. I am immensely proud and thankful of what we have built. This thing, once we get to the playoffs, like it's very do or die for the team, and it's do or die for us. Like, I know the reality of it. The second we get eliminated, y'all are dropping like flies, because you're not going to want to watch Steelers content for till June at least. And you know what? I don't even blame you. I'm there with you. I get it. You got to move on. But yeah, if this is the last time we talk to each other, me, the audience, etc. Appreciate you. This season has been a tremendous success. We've grown just amazingly this season compared to the last few, and I'm so proud of it. And just hope you guys have appreciated the shows we've been putting out. I try, like I said, my best to give you guys something really unique. I'm really proud of this community. I'm really proud of you, Gage. I'm really proud of Frayne. If you listen to this after the fact, proud of Steel Flyers. We built a little, Big Steeler Mood, Cruise Steel Ski. Um, who else am I forgetting? Who else is
Jesse
part of the
James
team?
caught that ball.
Jesse James caught that ball. Yinsberg helps us out here and there with little
Schwartzberg.
stuff. Yeah, I mean, just everyone. I'm thankful for all of you guys. And if you like what we do and you haven't signed up yet, I know it's corny, but I gotta say it. Hop over to Patreon. You won't notice the $4 coming out every month, and it really helps us a lot. It really does. It's hard to make money off of a thing like this. So if you can do it, go over there, set it and forget it. $4 a month. It's $48 a year. Helps me, pay Gage and Frayne and some of these folks so we can keep growing into the future. Please do it. Patreon.com/5SMU. But
Helps with off-season content as well.
Exactly. But most importantly, friends, just keep watching. We got a playoff game on Sunday. I'll be back. I'm going to try to do another stream with Gage. I'll probably do a stream with Steel Flyers. Just keep watching because you just never know what's going to happen. You just don't. And that's the beauty of it. So until next time, I will catch you down the road on the next edition of 5 Star Radio. Adios.